Be real with me down in the comments. Are you confident with Minshew and Aidan O'Connell for this season? And I want you to scale it from 1 to 100. 1, you're not confident at all. 100, you know for a fact that this is the best quarterback room in the National Football League. I asked this question, and I'm making this show today because I asked the nation, hey, are you confident? Do you believe in this current quarterback situation? Now, obviously, this poll, you can go vote on it still at Mitchell Renz 365. I'm going to put the link for you guys down in the comments and in the description of today's show. But it's very split right now. And I think the nation would agree that we have a quarterback problem. Do we or do we not? There's all that saying, if you got 2 quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks. I want Gardner Minshew to be great. I have confidence in Aidan that if he's got to be able to come into this situation, he can get it done too. But the amount of people that have asked me to do this show of, Mitch, who are some quarterbacks that the Raiders could target in a trade? Mitch, are there any free agents that we could go out there and sign to help out this situation? Well, luckily for you, coming up here today on the Raiders Report, I have ranked the top 10 quarterbacks that are realistic candidates. I'm not going to go out there and say, oh, let's trade for Josh Allen. No, this is top 10 realistic trades or quarterbacks that we could sign. They're ranked from 10 all the way down to 1. But can I get one message across here? I don't think the Raiders sign or trade for any QB that's going to compete with Gardner Minshew and Aidan O'Connell. This is the bed that we're going to lay in this season. You're going to be rolling with Minshew or you're rolling with Aidan O'Connell. But I'm a man of the people here. I'm a man of the nation. Y'all wanted this show, so we're going to do it. And the ranking is based on what I would do. It's based on how much money we'd have to pay a quarterback. It's based on how much we'd have to trade to go get a QB. And it's based on how good they are and how much they would help this team. Because right now the Raiders' quarterback depth is Gardner Minshew at number 1, Aidan O'Connell number 2, and the new depth chart that was just released, Carter Bradley was ranked number 3, even though I will say this, I'm a believer that Nathan Peterman will end up being the QB3 for this team simply because of his connection with Luke Getsy over the past 2 seasons. But Minshew is the starter right now. I'm not saying that Minshew is going to be the starter all 17 games. No, AP didn't say that either. And one thing that I've continuously said is being named the starting quarterback, that's the easy part. Keeping the job, that's where it gets difficult. And QB1 is only going to be between Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. And I don't think that any of these guys that I'm going to talk about, the Raiders are going to bring in. But just so you understand who are some realistic options out there, I wanted to be able to put together a list, 10 all the way down to 1. Let's go to number 10 here on the list. It's Trey Lance from the Dallas Cowboys. And I know how Lance played on Saturday against the Raiders. He looked good. But you know what? That game was just a weird, funky football game. And sometimes weird, funky football games happen. The perfect example, the Raiders lost to the Minnesota Vikings 3-0. 4 days later, they win 63-21. Sometimes weird shit just happens. But Lance is the QB3 right now in Dallas. And the only reason why I'm bringing him up here is because Raiders quarterback coach Rich Scangarilla was the 49ers coach back in 2021 when the Niners traded those 3 picks to go from 12 all the way up to 3 to go up and get him. If the Raiders did make a trade for Lance, it would cost the Silver and Black $1.1 million in 2024. So I'm going to tell you throughout all these guys that we're going to be discussing trades and free agency, how much it's going to cost or how much I think it might cost if that player is a free agent. Let's go to number 9 here on the list. It is Ryan Tannehill, who is, I'm just going to tell you, the only free agent quarterback that is going to make the list. Why? He's the top free agent quarterback available. I'm not putting Colin Kaepernick on this show. We're not talking about Cam Newton. Those guys, no way, shape, in hell are they good enough to play in the NFL at this point. But signing him, to me, I think it would cost more than Minshew. And I say that because if you're Ryan Tannehill and you're his agent and you're going, wait, I'm getting a phone call from the Las Vegas Raiders, you know that the Raiders are in a really bad spot to pick up the phone and call Tannehill. And I'm going to go, how much did you pay Gardner Minshew? 2 years, 25? You're going to give me 2 for 30. Or you're going to give me 1 year for 20 million. If you guys are okay taking 20-ish million, 15 million plus of our salary cap right now and investing it into Ryan Tannehill, then hey, you know what? Maybe I'm doing the wrong show here, right? I just don't think that Tannehill at this point of his career is a quarterback that I'm willing to pay more than Gardner Minshew and then make Aidan the 3rd string guy. If anybody out there disagrees with me, hey, you can let me know. You all know where to find me. I am literally everywhere at Mitchell Renz 365. But I did get this one on Twitter, and it came in from Wow, Cumpian, David, hopefully I got that right. Bring in Ryan Tannehill just in case Gardner and AOC don't work out or get hurt. So this is going to be the pinned comment on today's show because I would say over the past 48 hours, the most common name that I have seen the Raiders should go out and get is Ryan Tannehill. So type S for sign, type P for pass. Let me know down in the comment section. You're about to get hit with the YouTube ad break. Scroll on down and give me your answer. My answer is P for pass. I don't want Ryan Tannehill, and I don't want him as insurance because it's not going to cost the amount that you think it's going to cost. Ryan Tannehill is going to know the situation that he is in, and over the past few seasons, he's done a good job back in 2020. He started to fall off a little bit. Why? I think teams started to scout him a little bit more. Struggled a little bit in 2021. 2022 battled some injuries. 2023 battled some injuries. He is a mobile quarterback that over the past few seasons hasn't been able to be mobile. And if he's just got to sit back there and pick you apart with his arm, he's not good enough to be able to do it. So you're probably going to have to pay him more than Gardner Minshew. And then what? If he is the guy, then you're then still paying Gardner Minshew all that money. Yeah, I get it. It's important to get better at the quarterback spot. But legitimately, and y'all know that I really talk the truth, at least what I think, I don't think that he's better than Minshew. And you people are always like, Mitch, you hate Aidan O'Connell. I'd rather have Aidan O'Connell than Ryan Tannehill because now you got to bring in a quarterback like this. He's got to learn a brand new system. It's why I don't think that the Raiders are even going to add a QB to begin with. Let's go to number 8 here. It's Dorian Thompson Robinson. This has been a name that I have mentioned multiple times on this show, and it's more to do with his connection with the fact that he lives in Las Vegas. Now, I know that he's a member of the Cleveland Browns, but his home is in Vegas. He's always there. But the Browns have Deshaun Watson. They signed Jameis Winston, and they have Tyler Huntley. So that means DTR right now is the QB4, and if the Raiders were to trade for him, it's only going to cost $915K, so it's not a lot of money. If you did want to bring in somebody that could just be a little bit of a change of pace, be a little bit more of a backup to compete with somebody like Nathan Peterman, quite frankly, I'm okay with this because I think if you offered Cleveland a conditional 7th-round pick, they would probably do it just simply because Dorian's more than likely not going to make the roster. And you could see the Raiders potentially pick up the phone and call some of these QBs that I'm going to discuss today once cut-down date does happen, which is August 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's go to number 7 here, and it's Taylor Heinicke. I will say this. If the Raiders go out and they trade for Heinicke, I'm doing a Heinicke boot on the show when the Raiders end up bringing him in. The only reason, though, why I'm going to bring up Heinicke here, and there's going to be a major tier drop-off coming up here in a little bit of quarterbacks that are legitimately I would trade for. These are just more names of potential guys. Heinicke is the 3rd-string quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, and I'll be real, I don't think that the Arthur Smith system was the correct one for him in Atlanta. It was kind of a funky one, but when you go back and you watch his tape in 2021 and 2022 with the Washington Commanders, he was a lot more comfortable, and he was a player that the team fought for. The Washington Commanders teammates loved this guy. He was 5-3-1 as a starter, and he kind of reminds me legitimately of a little bit of a Gardner Minshew. He's not a quarterback that's got all these unbelievable skills, but you know what? He went out there and he was a gamer. If the Raiders went ahead and they traded for him, it would cost $1.2 million in 2024. That's obviously not a lot of money, but like I've been saying, Taylor Heinicke's not an upgrade at our quarterback spot. DTR, not an upgrade at the QB spot. Ryan Tannehill, not an upgrade at the QB spot. Trey Lance, not an upgrade at the QB spot. I'm comfortable with the quarterbacks that we have because there's really only maybe 2 names that might be better, and we'll talk about them here in just a little bit. Now, if you don't know, I love Prize Picks, and anytime, if you plan on watching a football game, any sporting event this season, I recommend you get started here with Prize Picks. Because Prize Picks, dude, it's going to totally change your game. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn 10 into 1,000. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS for a first deposit match. Now, I have these picks, and I already have them locked in. They might not be the same, but this is what I locked in already. I got Devontae Adams more than 71.5 receiving yards. I think because the Chargers posted that whole, like, him being a garbage Pop-Tart, and Devontae with the Raiders is averaging somewhere just slightly over 100 receiving yards a game when they play the Chargers. So give me the more on that. I'm going to take the less on Brock Bowers simply because it's very difficult for a tight end to get acclimated right away, and the Raiders can beat you in a lot of different ways. And Michael Mayer is going to have his share of targets as well. And then Justin Herbert, I'm going to take the more. He's out there practicing again, and this is going to be a game where I see the Chargers trailing the Raiders, and they're going to have to throw it. And 239.5 yards does seem like a number that Herbert's going to be able to hit. So again, pick more, pick less. It's really that easy. Go to Prize Picks. Download the Prize Pick app today. Use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Let's go to number 6 here on the list. It is Tyson Bagent, quarterback for the Chicago Bears. And, you know, I still, when I think of Bagent, man, I kind of get a bad deja vu of that Week 5 30-12 loss against the Bears. But I do think it was one of the games that really opened up the eyes of Mark Davis. It was like, dude, Josh McDaniels, he ain't the guy. But Bagent worked with Luke Getsy last season in Chicago, so, you know, he already kind of understands the offense a little bit. It would be easier for him to just step in right now here on August 20th and say, all right, I'm the right guy for the job. I will say the best game that he played last season was against the Raiders, and you've heard AP actually once or twice talk about Bagent being able to step in right away. If traded, you know, this would cost the Raiders only $915,000 in 2024, but like the numbers last season, he does give you some mobility, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, but like they made Justin Fields the starter. Luke Getsy made Justin Fields the starter over Tyson Bagent, and if the Raiders had an opportunity to go get Fields and said no to it in free agency, you know, then why, or not free agency, this offseason, then why do we think that he's going to go ahead and try to get Tyson Bagent now, right? Like, I saw this tweet which said from Ted Wynn here, Raiders should offer a 4th for Tyson Bagent because why not? And I saw that tweet, and I was like, man, a 4th-round pick for Tyson Bagent? Like, it was a fun story. Tyson Bagent, to me, last season reminded me a little bit of, like, the Jeremy Lin hype, but even the Jeremy Lin hype was way more than what Tyson Bagent was. So before I give you guys my answer on whether or not I would trade a 4th-round pick, I got to know from the nation down below. Now, I know Ted is a very well-respected person and amongst the nation, and he's somebody that, you know, I have followed since covering the Raiders all the way back in 2018. But here's your opportunity to be the GM. Would you trade a 4th-round pick for Tyson Bagent, yes or no, down below? And I see a lot of the comments coming in from K-Rock, no. Kings A, F no. DJ Loaded, no. Brando Commando, no. And guess what? I agree. I think trading a 4th-round pick for Bagent is insane to me. Like, I even asked our Bears host, who is very well intact with the team. I go, 4th-round pick for Bagent. He's like, man, that's rich. You know, and even for a Bears fan, a Bear person, to say, no, that's rich. Bear person. There's definitely a movie or a show where it's like, man, bear, pig. Yep. You know, like if you want to offer a 6th-round pick for Bagent, maybe that's something that we could talk about a little bit more. A 4th-round pick, though, I'm sorry, Win. I respectfully disagree. If you want to join the Raiders Report family, hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 172,000 subs. Believe it or not, this is how we put a roof over our head. It's how I put food on our table. The show is 100% free to watch. We need 238 more subs, and I'd like to be able to get to that number by the time we go up against the 49ers on Friday. If you hate the Niners, hit that subscribe button. Well, you would definitely appreciate it. We're going to be rocking and rolling over 100,000 people. Guarantee over 100,000 people are tuning in on Friday here on the Raiders Report. Let's go to number 5 here, and it is Joshua Dobbs. Now, Dobbs is played for a few different teams. Now, last season, he played for the Arizona Cardinals, and then he also played for the Minnesota Vikings. And Dobbs did well last season with minimal talent around him. Like, legitimately, he did not have a lot of talent around him. And there was even a part where it was kind of funny. I don't know if you guys remember this, but the Arizona Cardinals, Dobbs went into, like, their image, like I was going to say Raider Nation image store, but went down there for the Cardinals, and he couldn't even buy his own jersey at the store when he was the starting quarterback. And I get it. The numbers weren't all that great, but he did rush for 421 yards, 6 touchdowns, 31 first downs, which I do think from a mobility standpoint, Dobbs is more athletic and a better QB from that standpoint than somebody like Gardner Minshew. Now, I trust Minshew to be able to throw the ball a little bit better, but if a trade comes in, it's only $1.75 million, and from the overall numbers that you saw last season, 62.8% completion percentage, 2,464 yards, 13 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But again, he's only 10 on my list, and like I've said about every single quarterback that I have brought up here, and the reason why I made this show is just to show people, we're not going to get another quarterback, man. Josh Dobbs is not better than Gardner Minshew. He might be better than Aidan O'Connell. I think that one's at least up for discussion. But I would still rather have Minshew mania than I would Joshua Dobbs. This is, though, I'll admit here, where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. Let's go to number 4, and it's Davis Mills from the Houston Texans. Now, you guys know Chugs does a lot of work there for the Texans here at Chat Sports, and Mills has looked solid during this preseason. He's a player that I do think has gotten, better and better. Back in 2022 when he was first coming out of Stanford, 61% completion percentage, 3,000 yards, 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. That's also a very tough year because that's right when all the Deshaun Watson stuff was going down. You know what I mean? So it's Davis Mills put into a little bit of a difficult situation, which I don't think a lot of rookies would have been able to handle it the way Mills did just because of what the Texans' expectation was with Watson and now quickly how much it changed with Davis Mills. But this preseason, I'm telling you right now, he's looked really freaking good. And for a lot of people that watched the show back in 2022 when we talked a lot about these quarterback prospects, I'm the first to say it. I was not a Davis Mills guy, but 18 of 26, 191 yards, a touchdown. I will admit Houston definitely got some talent around him. On top of that, I love what their quarterback coach has done. Not quarterback coach, he was the QB coach. Now OC, Bobby Slovic. But to me, C.J. Stroud is the quarterback of that team, right? And that's not going to change. Case Keenum, very popular person down in Houston. I think that if the Raiders offered a 4th-round pick for Mills, then, you could potentially entertain that idea. I'm not offering anything more than that. Even a 4th-round pick for Mills is a little bit rich for me. I'd like to be in that 5th-round pick type of option. But then again, I do think Mills could compete with Gardner Minshew. I do think Mills could compete with Aidan O'Connell for a actual starting job. But this is one of the most expensive trades the Raiders would have to make from a paying standpoint. You would owe him about $3.1 million in 2024, which, again, not a lot of money out there, but could be an option. Taller player, does give you a little bit of that extra mobility, which I think is something that Luke Getsy really wants to be able to implement. It's definitely something that Antonio Pierce wants to be able to implement on top of that. But again, though, out of any of the quarterbacks that I have mentioned here before, how many Raider fans are that's the guy that I want? He's no doubt better than Gardner Minshew. It's not many, dude. Let's go to number 3 here. This would be a fun one. Sam Howell from the Seattle Seahawks now. And, Howell was the dude that dealt with a lot of, I'll just say, chaos last season. He was in the Eric Bieniemy system with the Commanders, but dude had no time to throw. When I tell you no time to throw and very minimal talent around him, that's the truth. He had still a close to 64% completion percentage, which, not bad for your first year, kind of getting your feet wet. When you consider the amount of talent that Howell had around him, on top of the fact that he's able to put up these type of numbers here, 21 touchdowns, again, 21 interceptions, but that was a team that was always losing, and they were trying to sling the rock. And another situation of, think about how much crap was going on in Washington over the past year and a half. That's a really tough situation to be in. This preseason, dude looks good, man. 27 of 41, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And I get it. It's only the preseason, but there is an eye test. And Sam Howell has passed the eye test for me. And I do think he's also a good fit for what the Raiders are trying to do. They're trying to throw the ball down the field. Sam Howell's a better deep ball thrower than Gardner Minshew. He's definitely a better deep ball thrower as well than Aidan O'Connell. And he's not afraid to stretch the field. I think one of the reasons why AP ended up choosing Minshew over Aidan was because Minshew's ability to be okay with the fact of trying to take some shots down the field, because he knows if you don't take shots down the field, teams are just going to stack that box, and it makes it a little bit more difficult for the 12 personnel. Dude started all 17 games and was sacked 65 times. 65 times he was sacked. So even if the Raiders' offensive line is as bad as what some people are saying it's going to be, it will not even be close to as bad as how bad it was last season for Washington. This would be a very talented team. Sam Howell, sneaky option of, you know what? If they went out and got him, I think it would be a really good competition there for Minshew. Let's go to number 2 here. It is Hendon Hooker, quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And Hooker, when he was coming out of college from Tennessee, he was really fun to watch. I honestly thought he was going to win the Heisman, but then that wicked ACL injury happened. Him in the preseason, he's also looked good. 17-24, 186 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Detroit does a lot of play action, and I think that his skill set does actually resonate pretty well with what the Luke Getsy offense does, but he is only the quarterback 3. They brought in Nate Sudfeld. So, if I think QB3, he's probably the best QB3 in the NFL. Legitimately, he could be the QB2 on a lot of teams, and I think that Hendon Hooker is an upgrade over Aidan O'Connell. And I would be open to the idea of Hooker battling it out with Gardner Minshew because he did look good in 2022 with Tennessee. And now he has fully recovered from that ACL tear. Dude's literally just bulldozing people in the preseason, running with the football. This is a guy who's got a good story. He's got a great head on his shoulders. He's an amazing leader. And if the Raiders wanted to pull the trigger here, it's only going to cost you $915K in 2024. I'd be open to this idea. But before I get into the number 1 most realistic quarterback that the Raiders could trade for, I do want to give a shout out to the August Comment King, which right now belongs to John Butson, a.k.a. Mercedes Renz, right? Noah Santana commented on a video 115 times. Jaden Ayers commented on a video this month 113 times. If anybody wants to become the August Comment King and get a shout out here on the show, you got to comment more on one video 167 times. So here's my challenge to the nation. Become a legend. And I'll tell you this, if the Raiders end up trading for Hendon Hooker, somebody's getting a Hooker jersey. No doubt about it. If someone comments Hooker 168 times on this video, you're the new comment king. If somebody comments it 200 times, 300 times, challenge is out there. Who's going to have the cojones? Because I know Pennies doesn't. Who's going to have the cojones to go out there and comment Hooker 168 times? I want YouTube to send me a message like, do you guys see how many times somebody's spamming Hooker on your show? Yes, I do. Let's go to number 1 here for the top 10 external quarterback options for the Raiders. It is Kirk Cousins, quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this one, I got to mix it up here a little bit, right? And out of all the QBs that I said, he is the no doubt, and I mean no doubt, only quarterback that is an upgrade over the guys we currently have. Last season for the Minnesota Vikings threw 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and I'll tell you what was a really unfortunate situation when he ended up popping that Achilles. But to me, out of all the quarterbacks that I just talked about, Cousins is the only, and I mean only, no doubt upgrade. Raiders would owe him also only $12.5 million in 2024. This is why Cousins is number 1 to me. And he's number 1 because, yeah, it's going to cost you something. I don't think it's going to cost you a first-round pick. I think if the Raiders would be willing to give up a second-round pick, which I know, second-round pick, Mitch, but you tell me right now we get Kirk Cousins, second-round pick, and you only have to pay him $12.5 million this season, $40 million next season. And when you look at the entire Kirk Cousins contract, $57 million in 2026 and $57 million in 2027, but on the contract, it is $0 million guaranteed. So the Raiders can get out of that deal by almost like $100 million or $110 million, whatever the hell the math is on that, 114. You can get out of it. Atlanta likes Michael Penix Jr. so much that they shut him down after one appearance in the preseason. And Cousins was not happy that Atlanta ended up drafting Penix. So it could be something that even Kirk Cousins would be open to. And Cousins also is the quarterback. If you remember this offseason, Davante Adams endorsed the idea of bringing in Cousins to this football team. So based on all of those reasons there, legitimately, the only quarterbacks that I'd be really excited that the Raiders trade for, I'll say Davis Mills, I would be a 6 out of 10 on the excitement level. Sam Howell, I'd be a 7 out of 10 on the excitement level. Hendon Hooker, 8 out of 10 on the excitement level. Kirk Cousins, I'd be really thrilled about because to me, you add Kirk Cousins, and this is a playoff caliber team. However, though, there is at least 2 more QBs that we got to talk about because I know some people are going to be like, well, Mitch, what about Dak Prescott? Dak Prescott ain't coming to the Raiders this season. to me, if Dak doesn't sign a long-term option, that is best case scenario for this team. If he hits the open market next season, I think the Raiders are going to be a team that entertains the idea of throwing him $65 million a year. I'll also say before you're like, it's too much money for a QB. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's been a lot of smoke around the idea of a quarterback-only salary cap. If that happens, I don't want to hear any bitching and moaning about Dak. I think that this makes us one of the best regular season teams. Obviously, in the playoffs is why you would want to pay a QB all that money. But with Dak Prescott, the Raiders are a team that's legitimately 11, 12-win football team. The last name is this. It's Tom Brady. And when I made this show, I was like, how am I going to do it? Because Brady does deserve to be on it. He's 47 years old. He's already been talking about that he's staying in shape, and the quarterback play in the NFL right now is bad. But, like, Tom Brady at age 47, I would rather have him than Gardner Minshew. And I would rather have Tom Brady over somebody like Aidan O'Connell. In the regular season, yeah, I don't know if I would stick to that, but there is not another quarterback on this planet that's not named Patrick Mahomes that strikes fear into the eyes of his opponent, especially in the playoffs, than Tom Brady. And he wants to be a part owner of this football team. So, again, I made it realistic candidates. You'd have to bring him out of retirement. But if Brady ended up coming back to the silver and black, I'd be lying to tell you that I wouldn't be excited about it. I know Buddy Bear wouldn't like it, but I would be okay with it here on the show.